是谢有权。
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is quite apt that after a long debate yesterday on the GST increase, whether it is necessary and whether it is the right timing to do this next year and in 2024, we are debating today about a higher carbon tax from 2024 onwards. Just as we need a higher GST to help fund the healthcare needs of a population that is aging surely and quickly with every passing day, we need a right price signal for carbon across the whole of our economy and our society in a world that is heading quickly towards temperatures that are 1.5 degrees Celsius and 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. A world in which extreme weather has become more and more real for more and more people. Climate change is an existential threat, and so we need the right price signal for carbon in Singapore urgently to drive the necessary changes in behavior by both individual consumers and businesses, producers. Singapore introduced the carbon tax in 2019 at a nominal $5 per tonne of CO2 emission to help the whole of society transit and adjust. 3 years on, there is an urgent need to do more to ensure that the price is right, that the price signal for carbon is right. Yet, this could not have come at a more challenging time. In what S.M. Tharman has described as a perfect long storm, climate change is converging with other structural fragilities like rising interest rates and inflation. And the need to bear a higher but right cost of carbon now is competing with very real concerns about cost of living, concerns that are immediate and real. Of course, in the medium term, by the end of a few years, we hope that individuals' consumption patterns would have changed and businesses will be well on their way to transit to low-carbon business models and practices, and the cost impact of carbon to both individuals and businesses and across the whole economy would have reached a new equilibrium, plateau, or even come down. But there is no avoiding that we are raising carbon tax soon in the eye of this perfect long storm, and the cost impact, higher costs, now and in the near term is almost unavoidable, coinciding with a period in which costs of living are rising sharply. Electricity prices will go up because of the higher price of carbon. Public transport costs will likely go up too. So I'd like to ask and seek clarification on how does the government plan to help Singaporeans cope with and adjust to this new normal of low carbon? How do we cushion the impact and for which groups, yet maintain integrity of the price signal of carbon across the whole of society and bring all segments in our society along in this journey towards a low carbon future? Now, it is heartening to hear the government's commitment to use part of the carbon tax revenues to help Singaporeans cushion the impact by way of, for example, more utilities, rebates, and public transport vouchers, for example. But can the government share more of its thinking about how it plans to deploy this, for whom, how much, and what would be its guiding principles and key considerations as it moves ahead in this direction? Beyond the impact on costs of living, another very real concern of a higher carbon tax is the potential impact on Singapore's economic competitiveness, especially for traditionally emission-intensive trade-exposed industries. Singapore was the first to introduce a carbon tax in the region, and in very short order, Singapore will have the highest carbon tax in the region. How do we make sure we remain competitive in the region and whole industries like petrochemicals and electronics don't lift and shift out of Singapore? how do we ensure that Singaporeans can continue to look forward to good jobs in these industries in a low-carbon future? Can the government share more details about how it plans to work with industry to build new capabilities and indeed turn this strategic challenge into new and exciting opportunities for Singapore and Singaporeans? Indeed, traditionally emission-intensive industries can and must become a part of our future green economy. And while the competition may be regional, markets for these emission-intensive trade-exposed industries are in fact global. And these markets will lead and define the demand for low-carbon products and services in the future. And so we have an opportunity in Singapore to build future green capabilities for the world. Position Singapore as a global hub to leapfrog the status quo and help the world produce green products and services. How might we better communicate this vision to all Singaporeans and make all of us part of this journey to turn the carbon constraint into exciting opportunities and to turn the low carbon challenge into a whole new world of possibilities in the next chapter of our Singapore story, just as we have done for water, gas, and land in the Singapore story thus far. So before I conclude, I would also just like to make a quick response to member Mr. Louis Chua's suggestion just now. If I heard him correctly, he was suggesting a US $100 carbon tax. I would just like to ask if he has considered the impact of this proposal on both cost of living and economic competitiveness, as so many of our members have raised. So in summary, notwithstanding the concerns about cost of living and economic competitiveness, this bill raises the curtain on exciting opportunities and possibilities for Singapore, and I support the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Louis Chua.
I'd like to thank the member, Mr. Seah, for his question. In terms of the carbon tax rates, I think I quoted a series of various numbers by the World Bank, the OECD, and various sources. And I think that is also consistent with what some of the feedback that was provided through the MSC consultations, that there are views that based on the existing level of carbon taxes that we have proposed, it is actually on the low end of both the scientific recommendations as well as what is proposed by some of these other organizations in their studies. But I think more importantly, I do recognize and agree with the member's point in terms of supporting households in terms of this transition. And I think this is something which we have spoken about in the earlier debates as well. In particular, when it comes to supporting households, we can see that I think we have talked about, for example, reducing the impact of higher carbon taxes on households, such as via a green dividend and a green fund. And these are mechanisms which can be potentially put in place on top of the various utilities rebates, which I think the government has also put forth.